Welcome back. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you guys once again for joining the 980s podcast hosted by yours truly, Kevin Thompson, founder and CEO of Not I Capital Group. Thank you guys for joining us. As I always say, subscribe to the channel. As I always say, go and get my book, MLB to CFP, live on Apple and Amazon. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can email us at info@9icapitalgroup.com. Send us your questions, or you can go to the website at www.noticapitalgroup.com. Schedule an appointment. As you know, we're here to do what? Educate, empower, and engage. And today we're talking to Tobias Salinger, Chief Correspondent of Financial Planning at Arizent. He is a world-renowned journalist and talks about financial planning. And today we're here to talk about RIAs and the inequity of growth. I want to have this conversation because I think it's important. It's not happening enough in our industry. And he had a wonderful article out in the the FP. So please, ladies and gentlemen, join us. Tobias Salinger. Let's get it. We have Mr. Tobias Salinger, Chief Correspondent at Arizent and Financial Planning. Thank you for joining us today, my friend.
Thanks very much. Appreciate the opportunity.
Well, you had a wonderful article out recently about RIAs and the inequity of growth, and it hit home with me because me being new to the space, looking like I look, right? And again, it's not, I can't put a bag over my head or anything like that, but being a little bit different, right? And the reason why I'm having this conversation today is because first is there is an inequity in the space because, as you know, and as you mentioned previously in some of your stats, you said more than a third or 37% of hybrid advisors plan to drop their broker-dealer affiliation. And most are saying because the insufficient value they receive and the cost of the broker-dealer. I am that guy because I'm looking to ultimately drop my licenses in the future. But are we in danger? This is my first question for you. From what you're seeing, are we in danger of becoming what we're running from? That's what concerns me. We're running from the big behemoth. Are we in danger as RAs becoming just a big behemoth ourselves?
Well, I think it's a very real concern because it is such a fragmented industry, such a fragmented part of the industry. When you think about RIAs, the Cerulli Associates study that you had reached out about, that I'd written about, just really drove that home. When you think about the fact that only 7% of RIAs have at least $1 billion in client assets, and only 8% have a staff with more than 10 employees. Mm-hmm. So that's a small number of firms, and those firms manage 71% of the total AUM in the channel, and they have 47% of the advisors. And as this goes on, it's only going to get bigger because I'm getting announcements every day in my inbox of another firm is acquired by one of the giant consolidators, and they have a value proposition because they can take things off of advisors' plates. And there's a lot, as you know, being a business owner, there's a lot that goes into it. And I think it's a very real concern for a lot of advisors.
A very real concern for a lot of advisors, because in my space, and I don't want to besmirch anyone's integrity or anything like that, but the issue I'm having is that I've had a conversation with custodians, not going to name any custodians because I don't want to denigrate them or anything like that. Having a conversation around, well, there's an opportunity here where you have smaller advisors, like you mentioned, 8% of firms have less than 10 employees. Oh, I'm sorry, 8% have more than 10 employees. So that means as a large swath of RIAs out there that have very, very small firms. So I
And it,
said, why can't we do something where, from a referral program perspective, start, allocating some of those resources to some of these smaller firms to allow them to grow as well. And then I got a chuckle from that custodian. And again, he wasn't necessarily a higher up in the custodian in their custodial relationship, but he was like, "Huh, that's funny. You mentioned that," and it kind of hurt me because I was being serious and I wanted to have that conversation, but to them it was more along the lines of, "Huh, that's idealistic. That's a pipe dream. We're giving our resources to the already large RIAs out there, and which ultimately takes resources from us." So that is my main concern in this entire thing, because I just think that a lot of us are going to get left behind.
well, and I think there are a lot of advisors who agree with you. You brought up the referral programs. We did a feature, a deep dive into them last year at Financial Planning as part of our RIA Leaders feature. And it's kind of shocking when you think about it. I don't think it's something that necessarily the general public has an idea about, but it's about maybe 200 firms or so who are on the referral program network for the two largest custodians.
Mm-hmm.
I normally like to name names, but all out of respect for you, sir, I will keep their names out of it.
Yeah.
But it is something they're aware of,
Mm-hmm.
something they've heard time and again. When you think about those 200 firms, I've spoken with firms who told me that they got $1 billion in business from these referrals.
Mm-hmm.
Or I've seen very large firms saying that they get 25% of their organic growth from these referrals. And what the custodians say is they need to make sure that their capabilities at the firms where these clients are going, and they want to make sure that it's an ongoing relationship. It can be expensive for the participating firms. It's a fee that goes on in perpetuity, but
Mm-hmm.
it is incredibly important. And I have to credit another advisor named Keith Beverly, who's the
Mm-hmm.
first person to bring this to my attention. He has been talking to the custodians for years. He had the idea of an emerging advisors program,
Yes.
so that in terms of the capacity being big enough, you'd have several advisors in the network, so that would make sure there was enough capacity for everyone. And it is problematic when you're in an industry where only 2% of CFPs are Black.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if those CFPs are not supported by the industry, then you're going to have people that just are working at a disadvantage. I think it's an incredibly important topic, and I don't think that people have enough awareness when there are firms who are talked about as the big growth firms and look at all the things they're doing right. Well, they are also handed this business from the custodians through their retail brokerage network.
And for me, it's more not necessarily about the referral channel, because I don't. Again, it's coming very evident that the custodians and the RIAs are kind of going in opposite directions, because the custodians are trying to fight for that business and keep that business the way it is as well, because they're starting to get their own advisors in there, whether it be what custodians I'm talking about. They're getting their own advisors in there and saying, "Hey, well, we're going to farm our own teams and keep it internal," which is fine, But what concerns me is that the resources that they're providing these larger RIAs to keep their business on their platforms. If you're 500 million or more, we'll provide more white glove service, right? White glove service that you're going to get. It's you can't remove resources from people that are starting their firms and provide all those resources for the people that don't necessarily need additional support, because they already have that internally themselves. So it just becomes a talking point from where can we come to common grounds where we can have enough resources for for firms like myself that are 40 million or less at this present time, and that are trying to grow to where we can become larger. Because if we don't, we're just going to end up saying, you know what, I need to cut my cost to survive, and I'm going to have to aggregate myself with one of these other providers, whether it be from compliance and or just operationally, to basically continue to have growth in my business, which is tough. And that's where my mindset is.
Well, and it's an industry of small business owners in a lot of ways, but in this consolidation phase that we're in, you're seeing record numbers of M&A deals most years. Last year there was a bit of a drop off, just with the higher cost of capital and
Yeah.
the higher interest rates, but still it was nearly another record last year. And it's just like you said, advisors are making that choice because they want to take compliance off their hands, and they would like to work with all of these specialized experts that these firms have. They're operating with substantial private equity capital, hundreds of millions of dollars, and it's got to be tough to compete for smaller advisors. Even as someone like me, when I hear $40 million, that is still a lot of money to me. But the way our industry, the way your industry, I should say, I'm just a journalist. I'm not actually in the industry. The way that the industry works, the debt can really be stacked against the small business owner. And it can be very problematic, especially if they're saying, oh, you have to focus on the ultra high net worth. That's the most valuable clients. Or they'll use language like, we need to gain wallet share. We've got to, take more of that wallet share. And
Yeah.
I'm sitting there covering an earnings call, and I'm like, did you just say you need to take money out of people's wallet? Like, what is that about? And I think it's amazing that advisors like you are looking into this, questioning this, thinking about how you can do differently. It's amazing to see innovation around fee models so that people from every income level can get the advice they need. For too long, it's just been an issue where, oh, if you're not rich enough, if you don't look a certain way, we don't want to work with you.
Man, and I'm glad you said that, because I want to take this back a little bit. The reason why I left the broker dealer space is because I wanted my autonomy. I wanted to be able to have relationships where I wasn't questioned on those relationships. And I wanted to have the ability to have conversations like this. And I want to tell the people out there, if I was still in the broker dealer space right now, this conversation wouldn't be happening right now. You may hear this conversation maybe sometime next year after it goes through all the compliance steps to basically say, oh, I don't like what Tobias said right there. I mean, you got to change the wording on this. It's a complicated woolly mammoth, like our guys at JP Morgan say. But at the end of the day, this is what matters to me, is me being able to have a business and put my face on the business and express myself in the way I want to express myself. Because too many times, like the space that I came from makes you act a certain way because they operate with the least common denominator. You know what? We want to protect ourselves so no one can say anything unless you're at the tippy top of the scale and producing the most revenue. And that's what the problem was with that business at all. That's where I came from.
Well, and I see that from the other side a lot of times when I'm trying to speak with talented advisors who are still in the broker dealer world, or they might even be on the RIA side, but they're with one of these large consolidators. I had someone I spoke to recently for a story call me and tell me that I wasn't supposed to speak to this person. I was supposed to talk to the CEO of the whole company. Or the right spokesperson is what they said. And, that is really concerning to me as a reporter, because first of all, I need to have as many different voices as possible. The media has a legacy of certain representations. I try to counteract that through my coverage the best I can. And yet these firms are trying to pick who is sort of chosen as the expert. All the time. And what's really unfortunate is they're only they're only being short-sighted about it. They have these compliance concerns, they say, but what they're really doing is kind of getting between you and your potential clients. When people hear your voice, when they see you, when they hear your story, they want to work with you. And when they're just putting everything through this filter of what they think might be acceptable or what one particular lawyer thinks might be problematic from a compliance perspective, meanwhile, they have 25 other compliance cases where you're like, oh my God, how did you miss that giant red flag for years? But they're like, no, we just paid $10 million to get that off our plate. Instead, they're always cracking down on what advisors can say and do, and they don't want advisors on social media. They don't want advisors doing their podcast. And it's just unfortunate. They're not doing themselves any favors.
You're absolutely right. And again, we're listening to Tobias Salinger on the 980s podcast. I appreciate this. I got a couple of questions for you, if you don't mind. I know I
Not
keep
at
these
all.
short. I like to keep them short because,
Okay.
people's attention spans these days, it's kind of.
Hey, I'm the same way. I'm the same way.
So, in regards to the risk advisors like myself face when competing with giant consolidators, what do you think some of those risks are in the RIA space right now? Me versus the large of the large firms that are 1 billion or more.
Well, scale is just the big buzzword in the industry. The giant firms, they just have a lot of resources and capabilities that advisors can bring to bear through the firm. In the story we were talking about, Cameo Roberson of Atlas Park Consulting and Finance and Scott Gill of Synergy RIA Compliance Solutions, they were just telling me that there are a lot of operational and compliance-related areas of the business that fall outside of advisors' area of expertise.
Yeah.
Advisors go independent just like you. They want to structure their business along their vision, along their values. But what can happen is you come up against registration requirements and keeping that perfectly on time and dotting all of the I's, or
Record keeping. Oh,
record keeping, HR, chief financial officer needs for all business owners, registering in all the states.
yeah.
Let alone an examination comes from one of the regulators, and you've got to stop everything that you're doing. I think the risk is that those tasks can just overwhelm everything.
Mm-hmm.
Now, fortunately, there are some technological solutions that are coming. Some of the startup wealth management vendors are doing a better job of wanting to work with small advisors. And there are some solutions out there, but it's tough for any small business owner to compete against the giants out there that are increasingly vacuuming up all the assets in this space.
And what I'm seeing is that, like you say, the mergers, the acquisitions, whether it be banks, whether it be private equity. And I was reading an article in the FA, and they were talking about, like, are advisors happy after they sell their practice? And one of them was saying that, where they would you recommend your acquirer or merger partner to other advisors? They did a study with another 160 some odd advisors. 71% of them said no.
Well,
71% of them said no. And I was like, whoa, that's interesting. And have you criticized the acquirer or merger partner to other advisors? 92% of them said yes.
wow.
Yes. So it's mind-boggling to me, because like I have a person that I really, put my heart and soul into. She helps me a ton, but there's a lot of things about, how is she going to sell her practice? And this is the last thing I'll say. Like, a lot of these advisors go into this world saying, how am I going to sell my practice? Am I going to sell it to an insider via succession, or am I going to sell it to an outsider via, merger or just a buyout, whatever? The problem they run into is that the people inside their firms can't afford it. They can't afford to go out and put get a loan or get debt and buy this person out. So that leaves them susceptible to a merger acquisition or some kind of private equity firm coming and buying their firm. And that messes up what? The synergy of their practice, the what they stand for, all of that stuff is changed, and it just destroys the business. So what are your thoughts on, like, how can we get around that issue where a owner of the firm wants to sell to an insider, but they can't?
Well, and that is a very serious issue. I would hope that there are some financing options who are specifically focused on smaller RIAs out there. I've seen a lot of certain investment banks do a lot of that kind of business. There's some networks of advisors who are thinking about that issue and trying to come up with solutions for that. Because I'm sure you must be getting lots of emails or calls or LinkedIn messages from potential investors, and it's got to be pretty enticing with somebody knocking on the door talking about multiples of revenue and how great it's going to be once you come over. But my heart does go out to advisors who have built their business over decades, and then they sell, and then they have a survey response rate like that, talking about how disappointed they are after the sale. I think sometimes that also comes out in the lawsuits that you see, where people decide they didn't want to do this M&A deal and they want to leave that firm. And it's tough. You agree to that, and then it really could be an entirely different firm that is making you do things in their way, as opposed to the whole reason why you went independent in the first place, so you could do things your way.
You're absolutely right. The reason we went independent is to do things our way. And this is the way I wanted it to be done, because I wanted Tobias Salinger on the call today to talk about his article about RIAs and the inequities of growth. Do you have anything you want to leave this audience with today? Any nuggets that we didn't discuss in regards to what the topic is of?
Well, I'd just like to close in echoing everyone who is a strong supporter of the fiduciary duty. I want to applaud all of the advisors who dedicate themselves to their professional development through continuing education, through finding ways to innovate in the client's best interest. I think there are a lot of ordinary people who don't quite understand the fiduciary duty and think that they're getting fiduciary advice from any financial firm out there, and it's just not the case. So all of the advisors who started the RIA movement and all of the advisors who are continuing to make it strong, keep it up, keep working. It will, I know we talked about these giant conglomerates that are getting bigger and bigger, but you're doing the right thing for people. You're helping people get past financial trauma in their life. You're helping people understand investing. I think a lot of times there's a vested interest in the industry in telling people they don't understand investing. Oh, you have to read at least 10 investment books before you should start investing. So all the advisors out there who are working with the fiduciary duty and helping your clients, thank you for what you do. And thank you for all the help that you bring to me in sharing your insights so we can beam it out to our audience at Financial Planning.
Well, Tobias Salinger, Chief Correspondent of Financial Planning at Arizent, we thank you for joining the 9 Innings podcast today, my friend. This has been enjoyable, and we appreciate you.
Thank you so much. Great to be here. Really appreciate the opportunity.
You listened to the 9 Innings podcast hosted by yours truly, Kevin Thompson. Subscribe to the channel. Go and get my book, MLB to CFP, live on Apple and Amazon. If you have any questions or comments, go to info@9icapitalgroup.com. Go to the website, www.9icapitalgroup.com. to schedule your appointment. As you know, we're here to do what? Educate, empower, and engage. And today we had Tobias Salinger, of Chief Correspondent of Financial Planning at Arizent. Wonderful, wonderful conversation about RIAs and the inequities of growth. If you thought this was valuable, press that subscribe button, please. Thank you guys for joining us. Stay humble, my friends. Stay safe. We'll see you again soon.